Welcome back to part 3 of my Deltarune series. Today I'll be explaining chapter 3 of Deltarune. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I'd recommend going back in the series and watching parts 1 and 2, but for those of you who are caught up, let's get started. Before I go into chapter 3, I want to briefly mention two things that happened in the lead up to chapter 3 and 4's release. In 2022, Toby Fox and Fangamer teamed up to host the Spamton Sweepstakes, a charity auction for Child's Play charity. The sweepstakes was hosted on the Deltarune website, and during the event a semi-ARG took place where fans could discover secret links to interesting pages. Most of these pages were teasers for chapters 3 and 4, but also included was a series of blog posts made by Noelle for her personal website about video game secrets. While Toby Fox stated that nothing in the sweepstakes was inherently canon, it is fun to read Noelle's blog and make connections between the video game she plays and Deltarune. She also shares a story of Kris and Susie interacting pre-Deltarune, and while I don't go over it here, I found it to be pretty interesting. The YouTuber Two Left Thumbs has two videos on the Spamton Sweepstakes, a 2-hour-long video detailing everything from the initial event, and a follow-up video released this year, and Toby Fox updated the website with unused parts of the campaign. So, I'd recommend watching those if you want an in-depth analysis of the sweepstakes, or you can go to the website since it's still up and mess around for yourself. The only other thing I have to say about the sweepstakes is there is a secret link only accessible by typing it into the URL area. The link is deltarune.com/des, and once you go there, you are greeted by a red guitar. Clicking on it plays a guitar-only version of Lost Girl, titled findher.ogg. This has been interpreted as confirmation that Des is literally lost, and both the song and guitar will show up in the next chapters. The other off-season development came on Valentine's Day 2024. That day, Toby Fox released dozens of Valentine's Day cards in the Deltarune newsletter, each one themed around a different character from Deltarune or Undertale. Most of these cards are pretty short and just a quick joke, but the rarest one you could receive had nobody on it, and was filled with text. It read as follows. It's a strange letter. It's more or less completely illegible, but if you squint your eyes, and you squint your heart, for some reason, you feel you could understand it.
Well, Happy New Year. Or was it the old year? Well, in any case, how is Deltarune? As you are waiting patiently, the time is going around. There was even a rumor of Valentine's Day. How absurd. Every day is a day of love. If only you believe it so. Do you believe it so? So, the purpose of the message. I want to help. Yes, there was someone I wanted to help. I seem to have forgotten who. Yes, it's quite ironic, but I seem to have forgot. Was it myself? No. Well, perhaps. Regardless, when I see them, I'm certain I will know it straight away. I never forget someone I don't remember. Will you help me? You are very odd, responding out loud to a letter, but you seem reliable. I will be counting on you. Now put on your coat and wash your face. Or put on your face and wash your coat. Not necessarily in that order, or in any order at all. Goodbye.
There was a sound like something walking away, and the letter was gone. Keep in mind, this Valentine's Day card was released alongside ones like this. Clearly, this card was more important than all the others, and had some relevance to Deltarune. At the same time, it makes no sense given what we've learned so far. But by the time Chapter 3 is over, there will be one obvious connection you can make between the game and this card. But to get there, we need to start talking about Chapter 3. Chapter 3 was released on June 4th, 2025, with the date announced a few months in advance. Like the other chapters, the Undertale Twitter account was taken over by the mysterious narrator a few hours before the game's release. How long it has been. Days that felt like years. Years that felt like days. And yet, No matter how much time passes, it still trembles. Our beautiful connection. I can feel it. Quickening now. How lucky we are to need each other in this way. So then, will you partake once more? The third episode, The Fourth Fate, followed by a link to the Deltarune website, where you could finally purchase the game. I will note that the narrator described in chapters 3 and 4 as the third episode and The Fourth Fate foreshadows the themes and contents of the chapters. This is something that will become obvious 5 minutes from now, at least for chapter 3. The chapter begins with Susie waking up in the dark world that Kris created in their house. She wakes Kris up, and while she is confused how the dark world is made, she is eager to go on another adventure. Kris and Susie then set out, and are quickly joined by Ralsei, who says they felt a dark presence and hurried here. Again, this is kinda suspicious, but no one questions it. As the fun game continues forward, Susie tells Ralsei about what they did after closing the cyber world, and asks if Ralsei would ever want to hang out with them in the light world. Ralsei seems open to the idea, so Susie pushes more, and asks if he would like to come to the festival with her and Kris. Ralsei says he would love to, but can't. Susie seems a bit confused by this, asking if she did something wrong, and Ralsei eventually says that he is a Darkner and can't go to the light world. Susie asks why, to which Ralsei gives us an important lore drop.
You see, Susie, you and Kris live in the light world, a place where everything is as you see. That is, as long as there's light. You see, when it gets dark, things become more indistinct. A chair can look like a monster. A poster can look like it's moving. Your eyes can't see the truth anymore. And when the light runs out, you see nothing. Of course, your mind can't make anything of nothing. But what if? What if it became even darker? Darker than dark? What if we could take away the light that wasn't there until we reached another side? If that were to happen, you could start to see things again. And hear them. And feel them. That is the dark world, Susie. An alternate view of reality through the lens of shadow. In other words, an illusion. The dark fountains change everything into a fantasy. In the light world, in reality, Lancer is just an average playing card. Queen is just a laptop. In other words, when the light comes back on, this world is no longer real. The places you go, the people you meet, none of them are. Even I, the one telling you this, I too am.
But Ralsei, how can you say you're not real? I can see you. I can feel you. I can hear you. Normal objects don't have feelings and stuff.
That's right, Susie. They shouldn't. That's why I don't want you and Kris to worry too much about us, okay? It's funny, I was overjoyed to make friends, then selfishly I started feeling sad too. Sad I couldn't be your friend in real life, Susie, that I can't do your homework, that I can't go with you, that I can't be there to help you out when you really need me.
Ralsei.
I'm sorry, that's why if you know me, Lancer, we can't do it all. So if you ever feel like we're not enough, just forget about us and make some real friends, okay?
Ralsei, you idiot! How can you say that? You think I could just forget you? Forget Lancer? Forget everyone? I don't care what you say you are. You're real to me, okay?
Susie, I'm happy to hear that, but
Shut up and listen to me. No matter what you say, no matter what you are, me, you, Kris, we're a team, alright? None of us are gonna forget about each other. So please, just...
Wow, what an amazing performance! The audience has been brought to tears, folks!
Who the heck are you?
I was hoping you'd ask. Mike, play the VHS!
It's now time for our feature presentation. Feature. Coming straight from your house. Coming straight from your house. He's the one. The king of. He's groovy and never groovy. You can't get this from an egg. The sensation of your screen. The show that makes you scream. Say it with it, folks. Mr. Antenna's TV show.
Okay, let's pause for a moment because a lot just happened. The first thing I noticed when I watched this scene for the first time wasn't anything Ralsei was saying, but what was on screen while he was saying it. The room Ralsei uses as an example looks similar to how I, and many others, imagine Susie's room looking. It is barren, with only a bed, chair, and monster poster on the wall, and clearly not well maintained. We do not know a lot about Susie's family, but the fact that she doesn't call her parents when Toriel tells her to, and that really being the only time we ever hear about them, implies that her home life is not very good. Also, the fact that she eats regular objects like chalk and shampoo was funny at first, but it's gotten to the point where it seems like she just can't afford regular food. Now, back in Chapter 2, when Ralsei showed Susie her room in Castletown, she acted like she never had her own room before. While that is more evidence of a rough home life, it also suggests that the room Ralsei shows is not actually Susie's room, and might be more symbolic than literal. Also in this cutscene, we get the first mandatory viewing of a character fans have named Friend, who is a cat-like creature with yellow and pink eyes and a big smile. Friend actually appeared back in Chapter 2, but I'm saving most of their lore for the theory section once the series is over. To a new fan, you would have no idea how important Friend actually is based on this one cutscene. Ralsei also uses the phrase darker than dark, which will tie into something that I am saving for the end of the series. Then, there is the main reveal of this scene. In Chapter 1, we theorize that the Dark World, real or not, was based on the Light World contents of the room the Dark World was made in. This theory grew stronger in Chapter 2 and is now confirmed. However, Ralsei saying that the Dark Worlds aren't real is a little misleading, I think on purpose. Susie questions Ralsei on this, asking him why he has feelings if he isn't real, to which Ralsei says, "Well, I'm not supposed to," and deflects the question. Plus, we know to some extent that what happens in Dark Worlds can affect the Light World, as if you beat Queen and Bruhlie using violence, Bruhlie will hurt his arm, and his arm will be injured in the Light World. In my opinion, I think Ralsei is correct in saying Darkners are just inanimate objects given sentience, but I don't think that makes them not real. Remember, the original prophecy Ralsei described emphasized that Dark Worlds and Light Worlds need to exist in balance, and not with Light Worlds being the only accessible world. The fact that we do not close Castletown supports this. To me, this implies that both the Dark World and the Light World are real, and one world is not inherently more important than the other world. But regardless of whether or not you believe Ralsei, it seems that Ralsei believes himself. Him not believing he is a real person explains why everything they do is for Kris and Susie, and he doesn't seem to have any real interest of his own. They like cooking, but only if it's for Kris and Susie. Ralsei's self-worth is a major theme of chapters 3 and 4, so be on the lookout for that as we continue. Finally, there is that weird guy who showed up at the end. This is Tenna, and as you may have thought, he is the television Darkner we saw at the very end of chapter 2. He also seems to be working with Mike, the guy spammed and referenced. In the rest of the cutscene, we learn he is the host of the game show TV Time, and invites the Fun Gang on the show. He promises us the chance to win a secret special prize, which is kept in an oversized gumball. Susie declines the offer, but after some guilt tripping from Tenna and encouragement from Ralsei, reconsiders. Tenna then springs back into action and prepares the game show. Before you start the game show, you can talk to some Darkners. Interestingly, some of them are of the same species as Darkners from chapters 1 and 2. One of these Darkners is Ramb, a plug boy that seems to know Kris. Ramb will be very important throughout Chapter 3, but does not have much to say right now. The only other Darkners of note are Elnina and Lenino, who are a pair of weathermen in love. They have a minor subplot throughout Chapter 3 where they break up and then get back together, but does not have a lot of relevance to anything else in the chapter, so I won't be covering it. The only thing I will say is that their breakup might be an allegory for Asgore and Toriel's separation, but it's not perfect because the two of them get back together, while Toriel clearly wants to move on from Asgore. Next is the game show, and at this point you probably have an idea on how this will go. Based on chapters 1 and 2, it seems like each chapter will be exploring a new dark world in a relatively linear path, fighting and befriending Darkners along the way. However, Chapter 3's game show breaks that format. The majority of the chapter takes place inside an in-universe video game that Tenna calls The Legend of Tenna. It is reminiscent of 2D Zelda games like Link's Awakening, and Kris, Susie, and Ralsei all control one character. You can only control Kris's character, but Susie and Ralsei's characters are controlled by AI and move on their own. At least, Susie moves on her own. Ralsei chooses to walk behind Kris like they do in the overworld. After the Legend of Tenna segment, you will play a minigame Tenna refers to as a physical challenge, but I'll give some tips for doing well in Legend of Tenna before moving on. In order to progress, you need to explore the map to collect 3 keys and beat Elnina and Lenino in a boss fight. There are actually 5 keys in total you can collect, and I would recommend grabbing all 5 to increase your points. You can also increase your points by doing well on the battles and quizzes sprinkled throughout this section, along with letting Susie pull up weeds in the area. This is important because you will receive a rank at the end of the show, and the better your rank, the more content you will get to experience. Points also replace Dark Dollars as the currency in Chapter 3, so it is good to get as many as you can. When I first played Chapter 3, I was blown away by this section. It is so unique from a gameplay standpoint, but it also fits in perfectly thematically. In Chapter 2, we had the Punch-Out minigame that was practice for the final boss. Here, we have a much larger section, where Toby Fox pays tribute to one of his inspirations for Deltarune. However, on repeat playthroughs, this section does tend to be a little tedious. Unlike Deltarune's normal gameplay loop, where you can experiment with different equipment combos, talk to different NPCs, or change how to defeat Darkners, these sections all have one definitive way to play through them, which takes some of the fun out of it. Also, these sections do not have a lot going on in them story-wise either, besides minor character development for Susie, Ralsei, and Tenna, so I'm sorry if it feels like I am glossing over this section. When you have collected 3 keys and beat the mini-boss, you can enter the pyramid for your physical challenge. It is a cooking-themed minigame that reminds me of Game & Watch games. Before the surprisingly difficult challenge, Tenna reminisces about how Toriel used to watch cooking shows, and Kris and Asriel would pretend that the chefs are messing up the recipe. This is a pretty mundane comment, but as the chapter progresses, Tenna will begin reminiscing more and more on the past, even when it's inappropriate. I'm not really sure if you could sum up Chapter 1 and Chapter 2's themes into a single word, but for Chapter 3, it is definitely nostalgia. After the challenge, Tenna will rank you based on how you perform throughout the show, and then the credits roll. However, Tenna will run back onto the set demanding the show carry on, and that the contestants come back for round 2. The fun gang agrees to this, and then get kicked out to the green room. This acts as a sort of hub world in between rounds of TV time. In the green room, you can talk to Lancer, who is up to his usual bullshit, and a Pippin who says Kris brought him home from school one day, mentioning they also brought some Rudins with them. However, the Rudins are nowhere to be found. You can talk to Ramb, who gives you an item that depends on what rank you got, and also tells you this.
Oi, Kris love. It's me, Ram. You and your brother took me here from the Liberty. How are they all? Queen still bossy? Swatch still got a mohawk? And that salesman? Right. The store. If you want anything, just use your points.
Talk more.
Time flies. Seems like just yesterday you and that girl had everyone here lined up. Queen on her side, king on your side, 10 on the back. Oh, it was chaos. Only kids like you two would take a laptop home just to play make-believe. How is she, Kris? Are you two? Well, it's alright. Everyone changes. Except us.
What Ram tells us is interesting for a few reasons. 1, the fact that he's not originally from Kris's home, and instead the library, implies that he might petrify at some point during Chapter 3, as he's in a dark world that he is not originally from. However, Ram's monologue also explains how some Darkners know each other despite being from separate dark worlds. When Kris was younger, they used to play make-believe, bringing home objects from the school and library to mess around with. I do not think this means Kris was creating Dark Worlds when they were a kid, as Ramb mentions there is always a girl with Kris. This is likely Noelle, but she is completely oblivious to Dark Worlds even after spending an entire day in one. So she and Kris were likely just playing pretend. However, I think the fact that the inanimate objects that the Darkners are based on were at one point in proximity to each other is enough to explain how they recognize each other in Dark Worlds. This explains how King and Queen know each other, how Spamton and Mike know each other, and all the other strange connections between Darkners. Anyway, if you receive C rank, you are only able to access a room where you fight a water cooler. If you received B rank, you can also access a room with a giant gumball machine, which lets you gamble points to receive prizes. These prizes range from actually useful armor and rare consumables to purely joke rewards like Lancer. I'd recommend trying to get all of the gold prizes, especially the Tenna tie and the executive buffet, as they're actually pretty helpful. There is also an Easter egg if you input a certain amount of points into the gumball machine, but I'm saving that for later on in Chapter 3. Performing the Easter egg results in the gumball machine disappearing, and you will likely be unable to receive all of the gold prizes before the second game show. If you receive the A rank, you can access a room where you can play the minigames from TV time, and can also unlock an extra one. I'm skipping the S rank room for now, but there are also 2 secret ranks, the T rank and the Z rank. The T rank room, which is better than S rank, is just a big joke with nothing really important, but the Z rank room is more interesting. You have to really try to get the Z rank, getting as little points as possible, purposely getting hit and stalling out battles, and failing the minigames. If you do poorly enough, you are rewarded with this, a small decrepit room with posters on the wall of 2 stars, with the only other object being a rotary phone, with the receiver hanging off. If this does not make sense to you, think about what the Addison said about Spamton, and think about how Spamton knew Mike. It seems like this is the room that Spamton's mysterious contact called him in, and made him go insane. Or maybe a recreation of the room. Back in Chapter 2 they said happened in Queen's Mansion. I'm not sure if this is a retcon, I don't really understand this part. The only other thing in the room is a manhole, and if you climb inside, you wind up in a room that you can also reach if you had gotten S rank. So I will backtrack a bit to explain the S rank room. When you try to go in, Susie will think it's a bathroom, and stay outside with Ralsei to play video games. Honestly, this just feels like a poor excuse from Toby Fox to make it so Kris goes in alone, but you will see why Kris needs to be alone in a minute. The S rank room is not a luxurious facility, it is just as run down as the Z rank room. You can find some other NPCs in here, and also a vending machine only selling TV slop and smiles, but the main draw is Ramb. If you talk to him, he tells you this.
Ah, Kris, look at you, a dressing room big shot. Cheers, cheers! So, how do you like the fancy game then? Righto, it ain't much, in it, love? Now, I knew you wouldn't like it. I knew. So, listen up. You see that game you've been playing? It's not exactly the original. Old Tenna's done a little something here, a little something there, and made the whole adventure some big old blasted line from A to B. Primo boring stuff. But if I know Kris, and boy do I know Kris, that's not what you want, innit? Freedom. That's what you want, chum. Freedom. Well, if I can go hush hush for a minute here, Kris love, that's what we got backstage. The original game where you decide what to do. All right, enough explaining, more gaming. I'll keep an eye out for old Tenna. You go have some real fun, all right, love? There you go. And I'm sure you know, but secret to Tenna, right, love?
Based on what Ramb said about freedom, and him referencing Jevil and Spamton, it seems like we found our secret boss for Chapter 3. But, unlike Chapters 1 and 2, I will explain how you do the secret boss as we go through the chapter, as you need to complete certain steps in between each game show. The first step is to either get S, T, or Z rank and enter the backstage area. There, you head to the left to find a game console, which you can turn on. However, it will shut down within a few seconds because no controller is detected. There's nothing else to do, so you are forced to walk back to the right, where you will now find a controller lying on the ground. Inspecting this controller reveals it has pink and yellow buttons, similar to Spamton and Friend's eyes. The colors pink and yellow show up a lot in Deltarune, and are probably important to something, but I'm glossing over it for now. You can go back into the game console room to plug the controller in, and successfully play the game. The name of the game is blacked out, so it's just referred to by the original game in the community. However, some theories suggest names like Man Country, Manhole, and Mantle, and the latter of which is what I think the game is called. Anyway, like Ramb suggested, the game is pretty similar to the Legend of Tenna. It's the same map and Kris has the same character, only now the map is filled with NPCs you can interact with. Eventually, you will wander down to the southern part of the board, beneath a room with a bunch of cacti, and find that there's some stairs leading to a chamber. If you go in there, you will get a sword. You then get kicked back to the starting room, and the game becomes completely different. With the sword, you can now fight the NPCs you could previously not interact with, and the NPCs will also damage you. Some of them only attack if you run into them, but others throw things at you. In order to progress, you need to kill every single enemy you can, sparing nothing. This is likely a stark contrast to how you have been playing Deltarune so far, but it's required for this route. You will occasionally level up after killing enough enemies, and once you're at level 3, you can now destroy cacti. This allows you to access a part of the board that Tenna did not use. There, you can keep fighting until you reach the max level, which allows you to destroy trees and go out of bounds. What's interesting about this new area is that one of the rooms has a bird enemy, which flies from tree to tree. Since you cannot break trees until you are max level, you can't kill it until then. But killing the bird won't grant you any experience points, so there's no reason to do this. However, I did not realize this until my 4th playthrough of the chapter. Maybe I am alone in this, but I think it's easy to get so caught up in killing all of the enemies that you kill the spirit automatically even though you don't have to. I think this was done on purpose by Toby Fox, and references something we will see during the game's weird route. Anyway, like I said, you are able to go out of bounds by breaking trees. Once you go out of bounds, you cannot return to the main map, and you have to cross 5 rooms before finding a chest hidden within the forest. Once you open it, you get the ice key and are booted out of the game. But before I move on, there are a few Easter eggs hidden within this board. If you go to the bottom left and break a tree protecting a bridge, you find a room with a bunch of staircases. Going into one, it seems like it is empty, but upon stepping forward, a black silhouette will fly out of the game. If you walk around the room, you can uncover secret text that's all black, but will appear over Kris's player. It says, "See you soon." Also, if you go back to the starting room, breaking the trees to the left or right will reveal a secret dungeon you can enter, and inside will be one half of Friend's face. If you enter the cave in the original starting room, you can see text that changes based on where you are. At first, it's empty. Once you get the sword, it says, "Become stronger." Once you reach level 3, it says, "Became stronger." Once you are max level, it will read, "Having fun?" in hidden black text. Finally, the music is also pretty creepy. When you start the game, the music will be what sounds like waves crashing against an ocean. Once you obtain the sword, it switches to a relatively normal adventure theme, but upon killing all of the enemies, it immediately switches back to the waves. Clearly, this game that Ramb has us play is very strange. The atmosphere is very eerie and unsettling. It teaches us to kill enemies we encounter, antithetical to what we expect from a Toby Fox game. More importantly, someone seems to be watching us as we play through the game, enjoying us massacring the NPCs. You start to wonder why Ramb thought Kris would enjoy this, and if they even know what's actually happening inside the game. On our way out, he asks if we had a little taste of that, and this is likely freedom. So does Ramb think freedom means the freedom to kill everything? Does Kris actually want this? It's something to think about as we return to this room later on. If you are wondering what else there is to do in the green room, not much. The room to the right is completely inaccessible, and the room at the bottom just has a few NPCs and another small store. When you are ready to start round 2, talk to Lancer and then head to the left. This will trigger a cutscene of Susie, where she will run off to talk to Tenna. Ralsei will prompt you to imagine what Susie is doing right now, but you actually have the choice to refuse. If you do so, Ralsei will ask if you want to talk about anything else. While most of the dialogue options are jokes, you can tell Ralsei that you've seen their face before, prompting them to say this.
Huh? I'm not quite sure what you Well, Kris, I'm sorry, but this is my face. And if there's one thing I like about myself, it's this. So even if you think it's boring or too similar to... Don't laugh, Kris. If you think it's the same as... Okay, I get it. You don't think it's too similar. But, Kris...
For the first time, we can acknowledge that Ralsei looks like Asriel. Ralsei seems to somewhat understand our concern, but Kris does not. They laugh hysterically when Ralsei tries to explain how they are different, which Ralsei interprets as Kris recognizing that they don't actually look alike. This is later confirmed in future scenes, where Kris will explicitly tell someone Ralsei and Asriel look different. This is despite the fact that Ralsei clearly looks like Asriel. I am not sure what to think of this. Maybe Asriel looks different in Deltarune. Maybe Kris is in denial or trying to hide the similarity. Maybe it's just a weird joke. But regardless, it is interesting. If you stared on Susie's perspective, the cutscene you saw started with Tenna talking to some person, maybe Mike, about locating something in the Purple Cliffs, and a start assembly on something. Susie interrupts Tenna to thank him for the games. As they cheered up her and Ralsei, Tenna reacts in gratitude, but then admits he has been lonely for a while, to which Susie can relate. Susie asks Tenna about Kris, to which Tenna reacts with mixed emotions. He says he loves Kris and that Kris was one of his original viewers, but also that he is not sure that Kris loves TV. He then tells Susie the next board is ready and sends her on her way. Once Susie arrives back, she will ask Kris what we think of Tenna, and we can either confirm or deny Tenna's accusation that Kris doesn't love TV. Once we start round 2, we are thrown into another Legend of Tenna sequence. This board is on an island, and instead of collecting keys, you are now required to take photographs of 3 landmarks on the island, although there are a total of 4 landmarks you can photograph. You can also take pictures of NPCs and other objects for extra points. At some point during this section, Susie will switch the controllers around so you play as Susie. Ralsei will ask if you want to keep it this way, and I would recommend saying yes, as you're able to pick up weeds and flowers for extra points. Otherwise, Susie won't pick them up on her own. The only other tip I have is to eat the moss in this area at the start for extra points. Once you finish collecting your pictures, you will get access to a raft. You are supposed to go to the left and tell one of the weathermen to come with you. However, you can also go right to uncover Lost Lovers Island. More importantly, you can go north to find a mysterious snowy island. Tenna will discourage you from going up there. When you reach it, he will stop the game and force you back. However, there's a point where Tenna leaves the game show to check on something. Normally this doesn't seem to affect anything, but if you go here while Tenna is gone, you can explore this snowy island. Susie will be interested, but Ralsei will be pretty nervous. Your path is blocked by a fern, forcing you to turn around. If only you still had your sword, maybe you could get past this part. Once you complete the Legend of Tenna segment, you'll be thrown into another minigame. This time a rhythm game like Guitar Hero and Club Penguin's dance contest. Before the game, Tenna tells us, "Oh Kris, remember December? Oh, that little musical prodigy. Remember when she'd grab the remote and swap it from cartoons to that wild music video channel Toyo forbid you to see? Guess your mother's never been a fan of alligators and bikinis." Yes, rocking her guitar and singing along with those nasty, nasty songs. Didn't you all think she was just so cool? Heck, maybe you could get her to come back and watch again sometime. Haha, just kidding. Anyway, are you ready to rock? This little preamble to the minigame is the first time in the game we get any major characterization of Des. She was into edgy music and knew how to play the guitar and sing. This ties back into the Des page on Deltarune.com, which was a picture of a red guitar. The connection to Des is deeper than just what Tenna says, as the song you play is filled with references to her. The song is called Raise Up Your Bat, and back in Chapter 1, Noelle told us that Des beat Kris up with a wiffle ball bat. That may seem like a stretch, but there will be more baseball imagery associated with Des in Chapter 4. The song was also mentioned by Noelle in her blog from Spamton Sweepstakes, where she credited to a band called Blood Crushers the Band. And the song itself uses the Lost Girl leitmotif typically associated with Noelle. There's also the lyrics of the song, but I'm going to circle back to those once we have finished Chapter 4, as they won't make much sense until then. You might also wonder if Tenna knows Des is missing or not. Was he messing with Kris when he asked if Des could come over? I think it is more likely that Tenna is genuine in his nostalgia, and is unaware of the events that have transpired in Kris's personal life. This will become a lot more clear as the chapter goes on, and Tenna says increasingly out-of-touch things to Kris in an attempt to win them over. After the minigame, you will again be given a rank T through Z. After the minigame, you will again be given a rank T through Z, and the credits will roll. However, Tenna runs back in with a special announcement. Stop! Breaking news! Due to your speed, viewer donations have been pouring in, and we have met the special incentive!
Incentive?
Yes, the funnel meter doesn't lie. The viewers' voices are in. You've qualified for the bonus round.
There's another round?
I mean, yeah, it was fun, but we do kind of have an adventure to get back to.
The Dark Fountain still needs to be sealed, too.
Yeah, can we, just pass on the bonus round?
Pass? You mean stop playing?
Yeah?
Well, I mean, if you want to. It was just gonna be a special board, but alright. Mike, tear down the board, tear down the set, tear down my house, tear down my kids. Audience, you're gonna have to go home. Please, make sure to check out our gift shop. It's got funny whirly gigs.
Tenna, we're sorry to depress you, but...
Look, I guess if you really want us to play it...
Go play?
Maybe just for a little bit?
Marvelous! Mike, rebuild the set! Rebuild my kids! We are gonna have a great show for you folks! The best ever! Tenna successfully guilt-trips Susie and the Fun Gang into playing a round 3. However, Susie suggests they go tell Tenna that this round will be the final one before they close the fountain. But before we do that, we can explore the green room again. The bottom area is still pretty irrelevant, and the rank-dependent rooms are still the same. But before we check in on Ramb, I want to briefly explain the Easter egg with the gumball machine. If you put in exactly 1225 points, the music and background will suddenly cut out, as if the game froze. After a few seconds, you will be kicked out of the gambling menu, and Susie and Ralsei are nowhere to be seen. You cannot leave the room normally, but you can go into the machine. Inside is a strange room with red paths on top of a blue checkered background. There are actually no bounds in this section, and you can walk wherever you want. The music that plays here is also findher.ogg, the song that played on deltarune.com/des. Eventually, you will find a small gumball machine, which you can interact with. You use the machine. The capsule came out. Inside was something hard like lacquer. It was a small dark triangle. You tried to take it, but it slipped through your hand, and you couldn't find it anymore. You couldn't find your hand. Well, that was pretty normal. Let's see what Ramb has in store for us in the S-rank room.
I'm glad you're having real fun, Kris. It's the least I could do. Not often a dark world pops up in your own house, you know. Though it could, if you ever wanted it to.
Ramb seems to suggest that he knows Kris made the Dark World, or at least thinks they should make another one. If you try talking to him again, he'll say,
Sorry, Kris, don't know what I was saying there. Just go and enjoy the games, eh? Cheers.
The start of the second board is mostly the same as before. You boot up the game, it says no controller detected, and then Kris puts in the odd controller. You are then thrown into the same map from round 2, filled with NPCs you can't interact with. Going into any of the chambers will let you pick up the sword and start fighting. You need to kill all the enemies in the area and get to level 2, and from here you can break some seaweed to travel up the waterfall and warp to a previously unused area. From here you are supposed to go north, and going into any chamber will tell you to follow the northern lights. However, if you instead go all the way around the map to the Lost Lovers Island, you will be rewarded with a secret chamber that leads to Tenna standing in a black void. Finally some peace and quiet. I wonder if they even like the game. I'm trying my best to make it fun, but here and there, strange things are showing through. Oh, why did I base it off this stupid old thing? Kris, oh Kris, if you could just smile. Laugh. Tell me I'm doing something right. Please. Tenna clearly wants to appease Kris, and is disappointed that nothing they are doing is getting to them. I'm not sure why Tenna is sad posting in the secret minigame, But that's not even like in the top 10 weirdest things about this game. After you make your way north, you can break the fern blocking your path to uncover a strange door. You need the ice key to unlock it, so hopefully you got S rank in the previous round. Inside the door is a traditional dungeon where you need to massacre all enemies to progress. You will again encounter a bird enemy, who will block your path if you try to move past it. You cannot kill it even when you are max level. You can also find 2 rooms with ominous messages, saying, "Follow the white cloak. The forbidden path began with ice magic. Once you are max level, you can break these orange orbs to continue, and you'll encounter the white cloak we were just warned about. You can hit it as much as you want, but you'll never kill it. When you leave the room, the white cloak will now be following you. Attacking with your sword now triggers the white cloak to shoot ice magic in the direction you are facing, freezing any enemies it hits. This allows you to freeze the bird that was previously blocking your way, and access a new area. After the bird is a maze section, and you can figure out which way to go, because the white cloak will not follow you in a wrong direction. This actually parallels a section of the game Dragon Blazers that Noelle talked about on her blog. Eventually, you will reach another door, one with red horns. When you interact with it, the game tells you, the door is locked. The ice key was used up. She was used up. The white cloak disappears and you can enter the door. Inside is a completely black room that is seemingly endless. However, it doesn't take long for someone to start speaking to you.
Well done. You've found my secret hiding place. But there's nothing here, is there?
You got the shelter key.
Oh, you found that too. Perfect, just perfect. Thanks for all your hard work.
You were used up. Before we move on, let's address something you are probably thinking of. The white cloak is an allusion to Noelle. Noelle wears a white cloak in the Dark World, uses ice magic, and the game even refers to the white cloak as a she. But if you are new to Deltarune, this is probably a little confusing to you. Noelle never did any of these things in Chapter 2, so is this foreshadowing for later? Well, remember that I said that there is a special route through Chapter 2 that involved Noelle. Despite Chapter 2 releasing 4 years before Chapter 3, I believe this part was added into the game to clue new players in on how to start the secret route. The forbidden path began with ice magic does not refer to what you have to do 30 seconds later, but if you go back to Chapter 2 and start freezing enemies with Noelle. But what happens if you freeze literally every enemy in the game? What happens when you try to do puzzles with Noelle? What happens when you encounter Bruhlie? The birds in this game have not gotten a happy ending. Again, I will address the weird route after I have finished Chapter 4, but you can already see where this route might be taking you. Leaving the room, we can talk to Ramb again, who asks us,
Kris, how were the games? Just to your liking? What? Someone backstage with you? No, Kris. I was back here on security the whole time. Tenna's really starting to stick that nose of his around, though. Sorry, but I think we're gonna have to make that next one the last one.
Whenever you are ready to progress, you can head back over to the left to talk to Tenna, triggering this confrontation.
Hey, Tenna.
What do you mean? Then make the air holes bigger! What do you think I'm paying your electricity bill for? And how are they not here yet? The lighteners are gonna get bored! If that purple girl finds out about this, it's all over!
What are you talking about?
Susie! Kris! Susie, sweetheart! Hey, what's the trouble?
What's with that phone call?
Oh, that? Oh no, I can't believe you, heard! We were, just planning a special surprise game for you! You, didn't hear what it was, did you?
Nah, I gotta go, actually. Man, there's nothing that pisses me off more than people who don't tell you the whole deal.
You mean Tenna?
Yeah, I don't know what, but he's hiding something. Let's go take a look around, Kris.
From here, there's only one path we have not explored yet, and that is to the right. You can actually do this part without having confronted Tenna, which is what I accidentally did during my first playthrough. Once you get past the guard, you will be met with 2 locks that each require a puzzle to solve. The puzzles are games like Legend of Tenna, and if you did the S-rank games, you will plug in the odd controller. Otherwise, Susie will tell you she stole some controllers, and you get to use hers, yours, and Ralsei's. In between the first and second puzzles, Ralsei will stop Kris and ask them if they could ask how Susie is doing. You get the choice between doing what Ralsei says, asking Ralsei how he is doing, or refusing to do anything. There are a lot of different dialogue options here, but all of them either emphasize the friendship between Kris and Susie, or Kris and Ralsei. Sometimes Kris will start howling like a dog and I don't know why. You can also continue the highly anticipated Date Bruhlie route, by making Kris tell Ralsei they want to go with Bruhlie to the festival, but the jury's out if this is a real side quest or just a big cock tease. Anyway, once we are through the puzzles, we seemingly exit the building TV time is filmed in, and arrive in a dark, snowy landscape. Moving forward, Ralsei says,
This set, there's something strange about it. Wait, look over there, you two. There it is, the Dark Fountain.
What the heck is that? It's like a giant gotchi ball thing? What's inside it? Toriel? Kris, what the hell is Toriel doing asleep in there? We were so busy with the game, I forgot obviously she'd be part of the Dark World too. Damn, Kris, we need to get to the fountain right now, or...
Oh, Toriel! Phew, there you are, still sleeping like a little angel. Aha, who the heck knows what I'd do if you woke up? I'm sorry we gotta do this to you, Tori. You were the last one to really give me a good look back then. But hey, that's show business! Nothing stays big forever. Without a little help, that is. That's why you're gonna be our little trump card! Welcome back to another electrifying episode of TV Time!
Wait a second.
Today's board will take place in beautiful TV City. But don't ask why the cars don't have feet. But like 2 queues from each corner of the city and...
Enough already. The game is over. Give back Toriel and let us go home. Now.
Game over?
Mr. Tenna, I'm not certain of what your plan is, but we'd like to go steal the Dark Fountain now. I think the show's gotten a little old.
Old?
Sorry, Tenna,
No! Ralsei, buddy boy, it's fine. I get it. Look, I get it. Classic TV. Sometimes it takes a little time to appreciate. So how about this? We all do one more little game, one last encore, and this time we'll play until you like it.
Hey, what the heck are you...
Game over! The game's never over! And if you don't want to play anymore, it's time for me to take control. Mike, crank it all the way up to max. Throughout Chapter 3, you may have been wondering where Toriel was. She was in the same room as Kris and Susie when the Dark World was created, and Chapter 2 proved that characters besides those two could be in the Dark Worlds. So there were dozens of theories on what Toriel's role in Chapter 3 would be. Some thought that she would join your party and use fire magic, others thought that she would appear in her Undertale costume. It turns out that Toriel is in the Dark World, but is still asleep, and effectively only serves as a damsel in distress for the Fun Gang to rescue. However, before the group can save her, Tenna finds out and captures the Fun Gang, forcing them to play TV time forever. In a cutscene slash minigame segment that goes on for way too long, Tenna runs through previous battles, quizzes, and minigames as the Fun Gang silently complies. Eventually, you are able to escape by refusing to say "I love TV" during a fight with a zapper, and stall until you have enough TP to use the act TV off. This will release you into a new area of the Dark World, and from there the game returns to the standard format of previous chapters. You move forward in a generally linear world, fighting enemies and collecting items as you prepare to fight Tenna. But I am getting a little ahead of myself. Remember when I said Tenna says increasingly offensive things to Kris as the chapter goes on? Well, this is where the game loses all subtlety. After the first battle, Tenna says, "Let's never fight again, we're a happy family, aren't we, Kris?" Kris? Then, before the first minigame, Tenna asks Kris, Kris, remember when your brother was here? You used to spend so much time with him. With me. Watching cartoons, playing games, smiling, laughing, crying. Why don't you two do that anymore? What? He went to college? Well, why did he have to go and do that? Fast forward in a bit to right before the second battle, Tenna says, "Wait, no, not another battle. Please. The family's fighting again." All of these lines allude to Kris's complicated home life, either referencing Toriel and Asgore's divorce, or Asriel's absence. These allusions do not go unnoticed by Kris, as Tenna points out their reaction. But again, I do not think this is Tenna purposely taunting Kris. While I honestly think that could be more interesting, Tenna seems to genuinely want to win Kris over with his game show. He tells Susie this in their conversation, and also monologues about it in the original game. However, he is so out of touch and caught up in the past that he doesn't realize things aren't the same way they used to be. He doesn't realize Kris's family isn't happy, he doesn't realize Asriel is at college, and he doesn't know Des is missing. Even when confronted with the fact that things aren't the same, Tenna refuses to adapt and keeps trying to force the Fun Gang to conform to his beliefs. Anyway, as you progress through TV times backstage, you will keep getting peeks at Tenna, who is desperately trying to convince his workers to capture you. Eventually, you can find a secret area where Tenna keeps all of the prizes for his game show as it's being ransacked by Pippins. If you continue even further right, you will find a lone cabinet. Inside is a Pippus, the blue oval that Spamton kept attacking us with. This will trigger a cutscene that depends on if you beat Spamton Neo or not. If you did not, Tenna will run in and be yelled at by the audience. Apparently, having a Pippus is not something to be proud of. But if you beat Spamton Neo and have his item equipped, the item will fly out of your inventory and turn into Spamton. However, Tenna freaks out, acts like he never seen anything like Spamton before, and sprays Spamton with some white cream. I have no idea how to interpret this scene. Throughout the game, it's implied that Spamton and Tenna seem to know each other. I mean, Spamton clearly knows Mike, and as far as we know, Mike seems to be some unseen employee of Tenna. So Spamton and Tenna probably knew each other. So if Tenna knows Spamton, why is he acting like he doesn't? Maybe Tenna was pretending he doesn't know who Spamton is, but about 5 minutes after this scene, we get a mandatory cutscene of Tenna where he says this. "Darn it, this is all that little spammy mailman's fault. He told me he was gonna teach me how to use technology, how to plug in and make it big. And where is he?" Tenna openly admits to knowing Spamton in front of other people. So it doesn't make sense for him to pretend not to recognize him here. But also, it doesn't make sense that Tenna would genuinely not recognize Spamton if he sees him here. I've done a lot of explaining in this video, but I'm at a loss for words for what's going on here. If you think you have an idea on what's going on, feel free to explain in the comments. Anyway, as we keep going, all of Tenna's employees will abandon him. The Shadow Guys, El Nina and Lenino, even Mike quits on him. You then arrive back at the green room, which now has a snowy effect over it and somber music playing. There is now a vending machine where you can exchange points for dark dollars at a discount, so I'd recommend hitting that if you have any points left. You can confront Tenna by continuing to the right, but we have some unfinished business. You can go back to the S-rank room for one last game. The backstage area is empty except for a single Ribic. Heading inside the controller room, we find Ramb, who is starting to petrify. As a reminder, he was originally from the library, so it makes sense why he turned to stone. You need to talk to him to proceed, and he'll tell you,
Kris, that's you, isn't it, love? Good show, good show. Tenna's been up to this and that and this. All sorts of boring stuff, but Kris, oh Kris, you and I know the real drama happens backstage. That's why I got it ready for you, you know? One last game. And I'll keep watch. Well, just as long as I can. Now, Kris, I hate to trouble you. I really do. But, you see, I can't really move myself now. If you could just shove me out of the way. Yes, That's right. Just like that, Kris. Enjoy the games, eh, love?
You can go into the next room and start playing the game, or you can talk to Ramb again. I'd highly recommend you talk to him because he will tell you this.
Kris, I'm an ignorant plug. Can't say I know your motivation, but I saw you make it, you know? The fountain. Could it be you just wanted to have fun again? Some real fun, just like the old days. That's been my purpose, you know? Letting you play your games. But now that the games are almost over, makes you think, was it really all such a good idea? Your mother, your poor mother, what will happen if she wakes up? What am I doing? A power strip giving you a lecture? Just play your games, love.
And if you talk to him one more time...
Kris, if not for fun, why'd you do it? Mum's the word, innit? Fair play, fair play.
Right before his petrification, Ramb tells Kris that he saw them make the Dark Fountain. Maybe you were wondering when this would be addressed, or maybe you forgot about it entirely. But Kris literally made the Dark World that the entirety of Chapter 3 takes place in. While it's possible they did this for fun, Ramb questions their motivation because this has put Kris's mom in danger. Upon talking to him for the third time, Ramb directly asks Kris why they did this. And while we don't see Kris's answer, they seemingly give them one as Ramb responds, "Mum's the word, innit?" It seems like Toriel being in the Dark World and getting captured was part of Kris's plan all along. But why? Even if Kris is the knight, which is looking more likely now, why would they need Toriel? It's something to think about for later, but for now, all we can do is move on and play the final game. Upon booting it up, you will be met with a map reminiscent of Cyber City from Chapter 2. This time, Susie and Ralsei's characters will follow Kris, but no other NPCs will be on the map. You eventually wander into another chamber and receive a sword, but there is nothing you can use it on. Going into the chambers again will only give you a gold cactus, and like I said, there are no enemies on the map. When I first played this, it took me a few minutes to figure out what to do to proceed, but eventually, you will realize that there are actually 2 enemies on the map, and they've been with you the entire time. Interestingly, Kris will look away from the screen when you kill Susie and Ralsei. Most people, myself included, interpret this as Kris feeling a strong remorse for hurting them, even in a simulated environment like this game. It is one of the first instances in the game of Kris showing any feeling towards our choices, but it will not be the last. Killing Susie and Ralsei allows us to break these fences and travel to the left, down a dark and narrow alleyway that seems normal to us, but is actually a recreation of a location only accessible in Chapter 2's secret route. You will eventually find a manhole and go down it to enter the main dungeon of this section. In order to progress, you must slay every enemy you encounter to reach the max level. Most of the rooms are pretty normal, but a few of them draw comparisons to characters in Deltarune, or more specifically Undertale. One room has a basic yellow enemy that throws red tridents at us, surrounded by 7 flowers, which is reminiscent of Asgore. Another room contains one powerful gray fish, with yellow dinosaurs at each corner. If you kill the fish, all of the dinosaurs will self-destruct. This is similar to Undyne and Alphys in Undertale. Some people also believe that this singing cat enemy is Catty, as they are both pink cats that like to sing. Well, this illusion is not as clear in my opinion. But what might be the most frightening room is this one. You are met with dozens of white enemies, all hiding from the player and not moving. And in order to progress, you must kill every single one. Because of this room and the Undertale comparisons, the Manhole Dungeon is thought to be a recreation of Undertale's Genocide route, the same way that the Ice Dungeon is pretty similar to Deltarune's Weird route. There is one other notable room in the Manhole Dungeon. In one room, the only enemy is a black monster, but you cannot actually reach it as there's a barrier in the middle of the room. However, the black monster copies your movements, and after a small puzzle, you can make it step on a button to remove the barrier. You lose control of the game for a second, during which the black monster runs all the way up to you. Kris will then turn around and kill the monster, without any input from the player. Within the game, you're not given an inkling of a reason for why Kris did this, but when players examined the game's code, they made an interesting discovery. A variable in the game's code named Toriel is enabled by default in this room, which makes the black monster's texture a black monster. Turning this variable to false reveals a black deer texture that is otherwise unused in the game. Now, no one really knows what a variable is called tutorial, but you might have an idea on who the black monster is supposed to represent. Once you are max level, you are able to break some orange orbs again and travel left. You will encounter Tenna, who is still sad posting about his life in a video game he probably thinks is single player. How did things turn out like this? Keeping Portorio all locked up? If only he hadn't abandoned me, my old partner. I was gonna put him on TV! Make him a star! I gave him everything I had, my life advice! All he had to do was tell me what his little secret was. His secret's of being a big shot. It took a little sweet talk, but just when I had finally, gotten him to sign the deal, he suddenly had to take a phone call. And when he picked it up, his face turned pale, and he ran right out of the room with the receiver hanging. So I went to pick it up, thinking it was finally my chance to be a big shot, but there was nobody there. That little freak ripped me off. I wish they never brought that laptop home. Kris, I didn't see you there. I did what you said, Kris. Just like a deal. You aren't gonna turn me off again, are you? Here, we receive even more details about Spamton and Tenna's relationship. It is pretty similar to how the Addisons described them, down to the exact same scene playing out where Spamton receives a call and then runs out of a room with the receiver hanging. Remember, the Z-Rank room showed a scene exactly like this, so I'll not count out that room being the literal room Spamton ran away. While we are not given any clues to who this mysterious person is, Tenna does say one thing that catches our interest. Like Ramb hinted at, Tenna confirms that Kris was the one who told him to capture Toriel, but despite doing everything Kris said, we still kill him. What's interesting here is that Kris might actually be okay with this. Fast forward in a bit, you do fight Tenna as the final boss of Chapter 3. The first time I fought him, I decided to beat him with violence, and I thought the fight was super easy because Kris was doing crazy amounts of damage. It turns out that beating these secret games will make Kris do increased damage to Tenna in the fight. Why this happens isn't exactly clear. Maybe it's Kris trying to dispose of Tenna quicker now that he's no longer necessary to their plan. However, maybe it's revenge for Tenna accidentally tipping the player off that Kris orchestrated all of this to happen. Considering there's also that theory that Kris threatened Spamton when he tried to talk about the night, I think it's a very likely possibility. Continuing past Tenna, we reach an outdoor area that may remind you of a location in Hometown. Traveling downward will take you to a recreation of the shelter, and thankfully we have the shelter key necessary to open it. As you approach the bunker, Kris will suddenly take control and try to prevent you from accessing it, holding the up button. We've seen them react to our commands a few times now, but this is the first time they actively try to stop us. But they eventually give in and let us enter the shelter. Inside is a dark dungeon that we can barely see in, but moving forward will lead us to this cutscene.
Kris, oh Kris, is it fun, Kris? Playing around like this? That's why you're searching for them, aren't you? The shadow crystals and the shadow mantle that I'm holding? You honestly think it'll get you what you want? No, part of you is just enjoying this, isn't it? Oh, don't make that sour face. I can see in the dark, you know. The question is, can you?
The speaker then reveals itself as the mysterious entity we saw that one time, and starts a boss battle. Similar to how the game we play is not given an official name, this boss does not have an official name either. Some people call it Nightmare, as the boss fight seems to be a reference to the nightmare fights in Link's Awakening. Some people call it Eram, as that's the name of the song that plays while you fight it. Some people call it John Mantle because it's funny, and other people think it's literally the Shadow Mantle fighting you. The figure tells you that they are holding the mantle, the item Sham claimed we needed to get to collect more shadow crystals, and this guy kind of looks like a mantle. Who's to say it isn't the Shadow Mantle? Personally, I refer to this boss as Eram as I think it sounds the coolest. And while the mantle theory is interesting, I have another explanation for what could be going on with that I'll explain in a minute. Anyway, the fight with Eram is super difficult. In my opinion, it is the second hardest fight in the game behind Jevil, especially when factoring in the completely different gameplay. None of the prior dungeons are that difficult. In my opinion, the dungeons do not really do a good job preparing you for this fight. The good thing is that, if you die to Eram, you are able to immediately try again without running through the whole dungeon. Interestingly, you will literally die to Eram. Normally, only the in-game character takes damage when hit, but if Eram hits you, Kris will actually lose health, and the soul will break if Kris's health drops to 0. No one really knows why this happens, but it won't be the only fourth wall break we encounter in the next 2 minutes. The only other thing I think is worth mentioning is that, in one of his attacks, Eram will summon friends to attack you. I do not know what this is about, but it happens. When you finally beat Eram, he will congratulate the player and say,
There, that's what I wanted to see. Flickering red, like pretty little flames. Your eyes can't hide it, Kris. Without play, the knife grows dull. Well, enough of that. We both have work to do. So if you want this mantle, hurry up and take it, if you can reach it.
Eram references how Kris's eyes will occasionally glow red, typically when the soul isn't in them, and then flies away. Continuing upward, we find that Eram left the mantle in a chest, but it's inaccessible to the player. No matter how hard you try, you can't reach it. With no other option, you walk to the right, only to walk out of the video game and into the real world. You can then choose to walk off screen, or you can chase Kris back, scaring them by using your sword, but it then forces you to go off screen. Once you are back in control, you can walk into the video game yourself to claim the Shadow Mantle. Leaving the video game will trigger a cutscene where Kris grabs the controller, only for Susie to walk back in. Now, you can have a normal conversation with Susie and give a review of the game you just played, or you can do something else. Since Kris is holding the controller, you regain control of Kris's video game counterpart. You can walk them back into the frame, and if you either walk close enough or slash your sword, Kris will grab Susie and fall to the floor. Susie will misinterpret why Kris did this, and no matter whether you trolled Kris or not, Susie gives you a soda. On your way out, Ramb is nowhere to be seen, but the rabbit is still there in the dressing room, with a horrified look on their face. Talking to them, they say, Kris, I was so scared I couldn't move. Ramb was... Wait a second, that's funny. Kris, didn't you already go past? A lot of people who love Deltarune will emphasize the rare moments of horror in the game, and while I wasn't necessarily scared while playing through this blind, I can say it's certainly creepy. A mysterious shadowy figure knows everything that Kris and the player have done, fights us, and then kills us despite them seemingly just being in a video game inside the video game. Then, in order to receive the reward, Kris must break the fourth wall and walk into the video game themselves, being clued into this by their in-game counterpart walking out of the game. And the final rabbit saying that Kris already went past, implying their character is still out there, is the cherry on top. I have not seen many, if any, theories attempt to explain what happened in this scene, and I think that's kind of the point. It is supposed to be unsettling and not make sense even to Kris. For there to be a logical explanation for why Kris's character comes out of the screen would take away a lot of the edge that makes this scene so memorable. But before I continue, I want to briefly explain who I think Eram is and what happened to them, as I think there is a logical explanation for this part of the game. As I stated before, some people think Eram literally is the Shadow Mantle, and we just take them with us as we go on. This could be the case. After all, we know Spamton and Jevil turn into items when we beat them. However, I don't think this is what happened. For one, Eram always refers to the mantle as if it's an object that he's holding, and not that he is the mantle. Maybe they are a spirit-type creature possessing the Shadow Mantle, using it to fight us and then discarding it when they lose. Furthermore, after you beat Eram, they tell Kris that we both have work to do, before running off. To me, this implies that Eram is still working in the shadows and may show up again in Deltarune. This is something I have not seen a lot of people consider, but is a big part of my theories about future Deltarune chapters. However, I will save the rest of this theory for after we finish chapter 4 and the weird route. There is one more thing I want to address before we go confront Tenna. While we did obtain the Shadow Mantle from Eram, we did not receive a Shadow Crystal. In fact, when I said Ramb was the secret boss of chapter 3, I lied. But Ramb still shares a lot of similarities to Spamton and Jevil. He was obsessed with freedom, and as we were about to find out, was a loner. If you did not do the S-Rank minigames, you could find out an extra bit of information on Ramb. Upon returning to the green room at the end of the chapter, a fully petrified Ramb will be in the bar, along with a Pippin. Talking to the Pippin, you learned this. Don't bother, Kris. Ramb's already turned to stone a bit ago. He was a plug, but because you played with him like any other toy, it made him feel special. Might have given him a little bit of an ego, in fact. Always condescending to any plan, saying, what's best for Kris? Couldn't get rid of him, so Tenna made him work the stand. Us from Card Castle fit in fine. Him? He never really belonged. His first day at the stand, he joked, how about the usual? No one laughed. Mixing drinks alone for himself, he wasn't allowed to handle the points. No one will shed a tear for him. Inside, he was probably stone already. If Ramb had this many parallels to the other secret bosses, from the social isolation to the obsession with freedom, why doesn't he have a shadow crystal? Did Toby Fox forget to give him one? Or did someone not arrive on time? The one difference between Ramb and Jevil and Spamton is that Jevil and Spamton met a strange person who turned them insane. There is no mention of this for Ramb, and it's something to think about as we move on to Tenna. The fun gang head back out onto the snow, preparing to close the Dark Fountain. In their way is Tenna, desperately trying to convince the group to stay in the Dark World. Susie cuts him off, asking Tenna why he wants them to stay so badly, to which Tenna responds, Kris knows why. Do you remember it, Kris? When everyone came over for the holidays? Back when I was just a little old TV, everyone used to gather around my glow to watch the specials. Smiling. Laughing. Eating butterscotch pie. Wasn't that just so much fun? To watch me. I was so happy. Then people stopped coming. Everyone disappeared, one by one. No one wanted to watch TV anymore. No one wanted to play games anymore. I've been all alone. Until now. When the night appeared. The roaring night. And I was told that if I keep you three busy, I can have all the people watch me that I want. And I've been having so much fun playing with you all. I just don't want it to end. So, please, just say it with me.
Enough already.
But what are you doing? I just had this suit DX'd.
We're done messing around. Give back Toriel now.
Alright, I get it. I get it. I really get it. Talking. I've been doing too much talking. No more questions. What you need is another physical challenge. Tenna's backstory is very revealing, but not because it's about himself. We already assumed he was motivated by nostalgia and a desire to go back to the past. What's more interesting is we see all of Kris's and Noelle's family and his backstory, including Asriel, Des, and Noelle's mom. Characters that have yet to appear anywhere else. When Tenna says they all slowly stopped coming, the order is very particular. It starts with Des, then Noelle's mom, then Asgore, Noelle, Rudy, Asriel, and Kris, leaving Toriel. From this, we can assume that Des's disappearance happened first, followed by Asgore and Toriel's separation, then Noelle and Kris's falling out, and lastly, Asriel leaving for college. Also in this scene, Kris clearly has the horns that Toriel previously mentioned, which is a cute touch. But also, the ending of Tenna's monologue confirms to us that Kris is the knight, at least if you also go off information we already learned. Tenna tells us that the knight told them to keep us busy, and this can be interpreted as them kidnapping Toriel. However, Tenna also told Kris that they were the ones who instructed them on what to do. So I guess Kris is the knight. This probably should have been obvious when Kris made a dark fountain after Ralsei explicitly told them not to, but you know how Deltarune fans get. Some people thought Alvin was the knight, some people thought it was a character from Undertale named Papyrus. I even saw one theory that suggested the knight was Des, which that was just a bunch of malarkey, I guess. Anyway, you can beat Tenna violently or peacefully, but unlike with King or Queen, his dialogue will be the same no matter what. When the battle's over, Tenna breaks down, lamenting that he doesn't want to be forgotten or thrown away. Ralsei will try talking to him, explaining that he understands how Tenna feels. He says that, although Kris and their family no longer need Tenna, he still made their lives better and brought smiles to their faces, so he wasn't a failure. Ralsei explains that all Darkners become obsolete eventually, and that they shouldn't make Lightners worry about them because it would make them unhappy. This line of thinking parallels what Ralsei said at the start of the chapter, but it's not really what Tenna wants to hear. So, Susie cuts in and gives her version of a pep talk.
Hey, you want to know what I think?
Susie?
I think you don't have to take being thrown away. Let me tell you, I've never really been able to make friends. I was always the scary girl, the bad kid. The only times anyone ever got close to me were as a joke. And even if I did start to make a real friend, I'd always end up moving away. When I moved here, I thought it would be the same thing. I felt like you. I felt like a broken toy no one wanted. Kris's mom saw me. Toriel saw me sitting on the bench in the graveyard, crying. She asked me what was wrong, and told me everything was going to be okay. Took me to the diner, bought me a hot chocolate, talked to me, told me I'd make friends. That gave me hope, even just a little. And recently, that hope's been growing, because now I have friends. Real friends. Friends I want to keep. Kris, Ralsei, Lancer, Toriel too. Even though I thought I was broken, I just needed to find the right people, you know? So, don't worry, dude. Someone out there wants you. Promise. Kris, you'll help me ask around town, right? Someone's gotta want a TV.
You'll help me? Susie, you're incredible! You're amazing! No, you're marvelous! I feel electric. I feel like $1,000,000. This must be what hope feels like. We're inventing a Hall of Fame just for you!
But you gotta give back Toriel. She's got people that need her, too.
I understand. I know it's not what the knight wants, but... Kris, Susie, good contestants deserve a good prize! This way!
Susie.
Hear that, Ralsei? No one's gonna get thrown away. Not you, not me, not Kris. Got it?
Got it, Susie.
Well, let's go!
Susie successfully convinced Tenna to hold on to his hope, and to not give up just because Kris doesn't need him anymore. In doing so, she also convinces Ralsei to reconsider his belief on what the purpose of Darkners are, and to understand that she and Kris see Ralsei as their own person. This ties back to the scene with Bruhlie, where Susie was able to inspire him to change his attention-seeking behavior with just a single conversation. Susie's power of hope may seem like a metaphorical or even coincidental aspect of her character, but have this in the back of your mind for Chapter 4. This cutscene also reveals she had a relationship with Toriel before the game, which explains why Toriel was so friendly to her. Anyway, now that Tenna has agreed to let Toriel go, we can continue forward to end the chapter. I'm not sure why he is doing this in front of Kris, who was the one who told him to capture Toriel, but whatever. Let's watch the grand finale. Audience, would you please stand up and clap for our winners? For outstanding kindness and bravery, the Lightners have won the grand prize! Here you go, she's all yours, folks. How wonderful! The family's all together again! Now, you can all finally...
Tenna? Who the hell are you? If you don't tell us who you are, then... Like hell we're letting you take her. Kris, Ralsei, come on.
Just when we thought that the chapter was over, when Tenna is defeated and Toriel is saved, the Roaring Knight appears. It turns out it isn't Kris. I just lied to you guys again. To be fair, up to this point, all the signs suggested that Kris was the Knight. They made the TV Dark World. They are somewhat interested in Spamton and Ramb subplots, and Tenna literally calls them the Knight. People probably thought they were smart for picking these clues up, and that it would pay off in a chapter somewhere down the line. Then, out of nowhere, the Knight shows up, not only challenging us to a fight, but confirming to us that they aren't Kris. To this day, I am still entertained by reaction videos of streamers and YouTubers experiencing this scene for the first time, because it is a genuinely shocking twist, and one that serves as a turning point for the story. But if Kris isn't the Knight, why were they acting so suspicious? Are they working with the Knight? It's something to keep in mind as we continue. Also, if the Knight isn't Kris, then who is it? Are they just the Knight? Well, while it has yet to be confirmed in-game, there are some connections you can make from the moment the battle starts. The Knight's head kinda looks like it has antlers, implying it's a deer-like creature. The Knight's battle theme, Black Knife, also uses the Lost Girl motif associated with Noelle. So I actually did more research on this, and it's more complicated than I said at first. Many videos claim that Black Knife uses the Lost Girl leitmotif. I thought I heard it myself when I listened to the song too, but the Deltarune wiki says Black Knife actually uses the door leitmotif. And after listening to it, it admittedly does sound like that. However, I will let you listen to the two leitmotifs and then Black Knife so you can form your own opinion. And in the pre-fight cutscene, the Knight holds their sword like a baseball bat. And who else do we know likes baseball? That's right, former Chicago White Sox first baseman Jose Abreu. As for the actual fight itself, it is insane. The Knight can nearly one-shot each member of your party in a single hit. And while the Shadow Mantle defends against the Knight's attacks, only one party member can equip it. Also, if you do let Susie or Ralsei die in the fight, the Knight will swoon them and reduce their health to negative 999. This is different from every other fight in the game, where typically letting a party member die drops their health to like negative 30. This mechanic forces you to use a revive item to heal them. Finally, you are unable to beat the Knight peacefully, and must use violence to beat it. This is kind of a bummer, because the Knight has a crazy amount of defense, and Ralsei and Kris will do almost nothing to it. Kris actually does less than Ralsei, which is surprising because Kris typically has a much higher attack. Only Susie's Rude Buster does a significant amount of damage to it, but even that is nerfed heavily. Many people consider the Knight to be the hardest fight in the game. You will most likely lose on your very first attempt, and that's okay, because the Knight is actually a scripted loss. You are technically not supposed to beat it. However, on my first recorded playthrough, I did this. Alright, I'm about to do this fight first try.
At the ground.
Someone kill me.
Ooh, I dodged all those.
I got one more in me.
When do you leave for school?
Oh my god, I
Yeah,
just no-hit that attack for the first time ever. That's crazy.
Eli, did you eat your ears yet?
I'm gonna wait till I'm in school.
Jesus
Oh.
Christ, look at my
Is that
health.
real? Are you anti-ear piercing for myself? But there was this,
Oh, God.
I saw this guy today who had his ears pierced, and I thought they looked really good.
No, I'm Oh! Oh my god, I actually might do it on my first try.
Oh, you're not getting healed, bro. Sorry.
It's so bad.
Alright, there's 1 and 1.
Sorry.
Are these guys bots? I wasn't paying attention. Or are they
No,
good?
they're like 1
Oh,
point.
I did it first try.
Wait, yeah, these guys are good.
I did
The
rolling
knight?
knight first try, yeah. That's
Let's go.
insane. So, even though the knight is very difficult, and it will probably take you dozens of attempts to beat it on your first try, I'm actually going to talk about the following cutscene as if you beat it first, and then go back and explain what happens if you lose and continue. The last thing I'll add is that the Shadow Mantle is not actually necessary to beat the knight. You will actually get special dialogue in Chapter 4 if you beat it without the mantle. So playing Deltarune Mantleless might lead to something down the line. However, I'd still recommend using it if it's your first time playing through the game. Throughout the fight, Susie will begin talking to the knight, trying to convince them to give up. The knight isn't listening, but you get the feeling that Susie is more so talking to herself than the knight. Upon bringing the knight down to 75% of its max HP, the battle will suddenly end, and Susie will react in surprise. She then leaps at the knight to go in for the kill, only for the knight to block her. They remain stuck there for a minute, before they each release, with a small shard flying off of the knight's blade. Susie laughs at the knight, to which Susie is suddenly attacked and dies.
Susie. How could you?
No, you can't. You can't take her.
Hey, you! Stop! Police! What the hell's going on here? You've got some explaining to do, punk. Hey, what are you doing? Put me down!
Hey! Hey! Where the hell are you going?
In a single hit, the knight is able to slay Susie and Ralsei, proving to us that they were going easy on us in the battle. At least, the game wants you to think that the knight did this. A very prominent fan theory popularized by the YouTuber DoubleDan suggests that Kris was the one who slashed the heroes, and not the knight. Some evidence for this is that the slashes seemingly come from the left and not the right, Ralsei seemingly looking at Kris when he says, "How could you?" and the fact that the rest of the cutscene finally confirms Kris and the knight are working together. I believe this theory, but I also think it's pretty low stakes, and doesn't really tell us anything that we don't learn anywhere else. Also, if Ralsei does know that Kris slashed him and Susie, he never brings it up again for the rest of the game. Another fun thing about this scene is that it confirmed a popular fan theory from pre-Chapter 3, that being that Undyne would show up in a Dark World in Chapter 3. It was pretty obvious Toriel would appear. It wouldn't really make sense if she didn't, but many people theorize that the reason Kris slashed Toriel's tires is to make her call Undyne. Then, when Undyne arrived at the house, she would see the Dark World and be forced to investigate. Why Kris did this though is still under debate. It seems like their plan was to kidnap Toriel, but when Undyne shows up, the knight just forgets about Toriel and goes after Undyne instead. Maybe Kris went behind the knight's back and tried to get Undyne involved, only for the knight to kidnap Undyne instead, or maybe they were supposed to kidnap both and only ended up with Undyne. Whatever the case is not made clear, and is something that will have to be addressed in future chapters. Once you are in control of Kris, you can pick up the thing that the knight dropped. You get a shadow crystal and a weapon called the Black Shard. Equipping the Black Shard to Kris will nearly double their attack stat, and it will also do extra damage against future dark-type enemies. It is by far the best weapon in the game, and a great reward for beating the knight. By the way, if you lost to the knight and did not restart, the only major difference will be that you will not receive the crystal or Black Shard, as Susie did not attack the knight in that ending. Instead, the cutscene will begin with the knight trying to kidnap Toriel, again interrupted by Undyne. Additionally, if you use the shadow crystal in this room, it will tell you this. For some strange reason, for just a brief moment, you thought you saw the television get smashed to pieces. Once again, it seems to be implying that the shadow crystals let you see the light world counterparts of dark worlds. However, you can actually smuggle previous shadow crystals into this chapter if you don't give them the sham. Doing so will result in the same dialogue. It's unclear if this is an oversight in the game, or evidence that shadow crystals are prophetic in some way. The only other difference between winning or losing the knight fight is the dialogue for when you interact with Toriel and Ralsei. I don't find Ralsei's dialogue that interesting, but Toriel's is. If you lose to the knight, it will say she's sleeping peacefully, but if you won, then it will say she's having a nightmare. There's a lot of speculation as to why beating the knight is apparently worse than losing to it, with most thinking it is a part of the Kris Slash theory. By losing to the knight, Kris doesn't need to outwardly betray their friends, so Toriel is having a normal dream. But if the Kris Slash theory is true, Kris directly betrays their friends if you beat the knight. This makes Toriel's dream turn into a nightmare. Continuing forward, you find a bunch of spears in the ground as the snowy effect fades back in. You eventually reach Susie, who has found a door among the darkness. Upon entering it, the cutscene continues as follows.
What? We're in the light world? Wait. Kris, I still see someone. They're down there. Down here, past the church. Hey! Hey, open up! Undyne! Officer Undyne, say something! Hey, this is a joke, right? You're about to come out of there, right? What the hell is this? It's some sort of electronic lock? Kris, what the hell is going on? Why did they take Undyne in here? And why were they trying to take Toriel? What the hell are they doing, Kris? Like, if the cops... It's no good. The door. It's solid steel. This weird panel. If we could just get someone to tell us how it works. But we can't, right? We can't tell anyone about this, right? Because you saw that smoke, right, Kris? There's gotta be a dark world in there. If anybody else went in there, they'd... Toriel. She's still in... Damn it. I hate to give up here, Kris, but Let's just go steal that fountain.
On the shelter was a strange panel. It looked like a digital security lock. There were 3 entry fields and 3 symbols besides them. One had a pine tree beside it. One had an officer's badge beside it. And one had the Deltarune. I said before that the knight's introduction serves as a turning point for the game's story, and now I think you can understand what I meant. Sure, there were always hints at a larger story, and Chapter 2's lore drop about the Roaring implied that our adventures were more serious than they may seem. But now, it's clear that this story is a lot bigger than a couple of outcast kids playing make-believe. The knight has kidnapped a police officer, taken them to the mysterious bunker, and likely plans on capturing more Lightners. It is up to us and Susie to stop them, and break into the bunker to free Undyne and whoever else is trapped there. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the Deltarune is a literal symbol that first appeared in Undertale and is everywhere in Deltarune. It's not explicitly stated what this represents, but we can infer that the 3 triangles represent the heroes, and the angel-like figure is the angel mentioned in the prophecy. And yes, in case you were wondering, the shelter door did open for Kris, further confirming the knight and Kris are working together. At this point, the real question is why Kris is working with the knight, and that is one of my favorite mysteries in Deltarune. However, in order to accurately theorize about this, I think we should go over Chapter 4 on the Weird Route first, as it will reveal a lot of important information. All I will say for now is that while your gut reaction may be, oh wow, Kris was evil the entire time, I don't think it's that simple. Kris clearly likes Ralsei and Susie. They were disturbed when they had to kill them in the Mantle game. So, why would they betray them by working with the knight? Or, are they betraying the knight by working with Ralsei and Susie? It's another thing to think about heading into Chapter 4. But before we can talk about that chapter, there's one thing we forgot about, the Eggman. In Chapters 1 and 2, obtaining the egg was pretty simple. Just walk back and forth between 2 rooms. Players expected future chapters to work the same, and we're in for a rude awakening when Chapter 3 released. But the extremely complicated method of obtaining the Chapter 3 egg led people to realize that the eggs were not some weird inside joke Toby Fox has with himself, and potentially the most crucial part of understanding Deltarune. To start off, through the TV world, you will encounter puzzles that resemble the Legend of Tenna games, where you have to switch between Kris, Susie, Ralsei, and even Lancer's player. Sometimes the puzzles will be over multiple TV screens and may be out of order. That brings us to this puzzle, which at first just looks like a single screen. But notice how there is not a wall on the right. This means this puzzle must be connected to another one somewhere in TV world. Using Susie, throw the leftover box across the river, specifically in between the 2 weeds. This will make it so you can access the box in the other half of the puzzle. Then, you will need to travel all the way to just before the green room, in this weird purple area. Go down to where a spotlight is protecting the chest and purposely walk into it. A zapper will appear and ask where you are going. Tell him you are heading nowhere, to which he'll say Kris was already going there and turn the game off. When you wake up, you'll be in a new room with only Kris and the second half of the puzzle. Don't push the block into the corner like I do here, and instead push it onto the button. This will open a path in the real world, revealing a room with another Legend of Tenna puzzle and a blue wizard. This wizard is actually a generic Darkner we will see a lot of in Chapter 4, so I'll explain my theory on why they are here once they get their real introduction. You need to talk to the in-game wizard, who will tell you he has a ticket to nowhere, but we must be alone to get it. He will have us look around the in-game house, and when we are unable to find it, he tells us, "Odd, you've been holding it the entire time." When you leave the game, you will find a trip ticket in your inventory. You can now leave this area, and the next step is pretty obvious. Backtrack some more to fight a Ribic and hold down left when you select the Crocon X action. This will take you to a new area called Man Country. It is mostly greenscale and has a strange 8-bit song playing, reminiscent of a Game Boy game. Kris will be alone in their Lightner outfit, but the area will be filled with small, discolored Rudens. If you have a good memory, you might remember that a Pippin told us we brought home some Rudens with them, but lost them somewhere. This must be where they ended up. Talking to them all gives us some interesting dialogue.
Oh, Kris, what are you doing here? Did you come here to play with us? Kris never wants to play. Boo-hoo. Why don't you photocopy a Kris to play with us?
Kris, you look rather big. Have you been working out? I guess you grew up. Well, stop that.
Copies are monochrome, but you colored each of us in with care. Maybe the pink ace was suspicious.
Kris? Someone was looking for you, though I don't remember who. Did you try behind the tree?
I'm trying to see as far as I can, but it doesn't look too good. Talk about lousy real estate. I sense nothing but evil from that place.
We are the 7 flying aces. You cheated cards, you copied 7 aces. It didn't work well. We got lost in the couch and ended up here. What, there aren't 7? Well, you named us. If you were good at counting cards, you wouldn't have needed to cheat.
In case you are wondering, this is what's through the binoculars. The Deltarune wiki describes this as a gray patch of grass, but honestly, I have no idea what we are looking at. You can also interact with the signs here that say, "Welcome to Man Country." It's a man's world. Welcome to Forgotten Island. This island is a World Heritage Site. Non-men are okay too. Before I explain any of this, let's go north into the temple with part of the Deltarune on it. Inside, we will find a green scale tree, and behind it will be the man. For the first time in-game, he will speak to us.
Well, spring changed to summer, and summer changed to cold. And sure enough, I am the forgotten man. Will you forget me too?
No.
Are you sure? You have forgotten me many times before. Even if you meet me, I will be forgotten thereafter. Sometimes I even forget myself. I ask again, will you forget me?
No.
You'll remember me? Well, in that case, forget about it. I am just a man. Listen well to my story. Once upon a time, the whole world looked like this. Do you think so?
No.
Of course not. It's just a story, after all. Now, let me continue. Well, the world changed. Society was developed. The earth was covered in water. Dinosaurs appeared. An ice age. Actually, there are still dinosaurs. Is it mixed up? In any case, this island is the only place left I can talk. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Funny, I haven't the faintest clue what it all means, but one day this island will disappear too. We may not meet again in that case. Did you want to meet again?
Yes.
Oh, joy. I'll tell you my schedule. Listen carefully. On Thursday, I go to sell the donuts. On Friday, I toss the leftovers in the dumpster. On Saturday, I let it cool on the windowsill. On Sunday, I harvest the wheat. Hold your breath. Head to the left and count backwards to 100. Did you remember to write that down?
Yes.
How very kind of you. Please take this to remember me.
Kris received the egg.
Although you may lose it in another day, so be sure to put it somewhere. There's no shame in an egg.
Yes.
You are very opinionated. I like you. You may forget me. I may forget myself, but I will remember your kindness. Now, this island will disappear soon. You must depart. If you will it, we shall meet again at that place, whether 11 hours or 11 years. Deltarune will be waiting. So take your time, wash your face, and get dressed.
As you can see, Kris will turn back into their darkener form upon receiving the egg. I should also mention that, in order to receive the egg, you must answer no when the man asks if you'll forget him, answer no again when he repeats the question, and then say yes when he asks if you want to meet him again. The other questions don't affect anything except a single line of dialogue. Once you leave Man Country, you will be thrown into the green room, but there is one last Easter egg you can see. Throughout the game, each member of your party will have a status that you can check in the menu. Most of the time, this is used for jokes, but when you are in Man Country, Kris's status will be enjoying the youthful days. I'm not gonna give my entire theory on the Forgotten Man and the eggs right now, as Chapter 4 will give some crucial information that's important to understand what's going on. But remember that Valentine's card I showed you at the start of Chapter 3? Well, the Forgotten Man and the writer of that card seem to be the same person, as they use similar phrases. I also think we can speculate on Man Country. Throughout Chapter 3, Tenna tries and fails repeatedly to appeal to Kris's nostalgia, because he doesn't really understand why Kris enjoyed their childhood. Think about when Tenna says Kris and Asriel used to watch cooking shows on the TV, or when Des would put on crazy music videos. Tenna thinks that it is the literal television that made Kris remember those moments so fondly, and in reality, it was the people he was spending time with. Kris probably wouldn't have enjoyed the cooking shows if Asriel wasn't making fun of them. Kris wouldn't have watched any music videos if Des didn't sneak them onto the TV. I think that Man Country is the part of Kris's childhood they are genuinely nostalgic for. Starting with the name, it's clarified by a sign that non-males are okay in Man Country too. A theory I saw online suggested that the name Man Country originated from Asriel, who was likely only friends with other boys when he was young. But when Kris came into the family and was non-binary, Asriel loosened the restriction on Man Country only being for men, and allowed Kris to play with him. Alternatively, this might be about Des, as she is a non-man. Furthermore, the concept of playing make-believe comes up a lot in Chapter 3 throughout Ramb's monologues, and it seems like the Flying Aces are another example of this. Sure, Kris originally made them the cheated cards, but the first two aces we talked to imply that Kris played with them repeatedly. Plus, if Kris was playing with a power strip, it's safe to say they were playing with other mundane objects. It's also established throughout Deltarune that Kris is a gamer, so it makes sense that their nostalgic world is based on an old video game system. Then there's the status being changed to enjoying the youthful days, which seems pretty on the nose. I'm not exactly sure what to make of the whole going to nowhere thing, but I do have one idea. It refers to how, when you are a kid, you don't really have anything to do. You don't have many responsibilities and can spend your time doing nothing, or in other words, going nowhere. All of this implies that the Forgotten Man is also tied to Kris's past in some way, but we will need to wait until Chapter 4 to speculate on his identity. To end this segment, the line "copies are monochrome" is also one of the most widely discussed lines of dialogue in the Deltarune community. Based on the information I've given you, it's a little hard to understand why, as it's mostly related to Undertale specific content. But there is one connection you can make. At the start of the game during the Goner Maker, the vessel we make was grayscale, or monochrome. Does this imply that the vessel is a copy of Kris or some other human? This won't come up again in the rest of the game, but it's something to think about in Chapter 5 and beyond. And with that, we have finished Chapter 3. As I've stated before, Chapter 4 also released when Chapter 3 released, so players do not have to wait to pick up where the cliffhanger left off. I know I've been releasing these videos every couple of weeks or so, but I thought it would be unfair to make you guys wait while everyone else got to play right away. So, if you want to continue into Chapter 4, click the video that just appeared right over my head. It will publicly release on this channel in one day, so you can also come back then to watch it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in 1 second.